All right. Call the meeting to order at 6:35. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Roll call, please.
Here.
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 Present. Here.
Present.
Present. All right, mayoral reports. Couple items. We're gonna pass, we have a recognition tonight. We're waiting for one of the hardest workers in town, Mr. Dave Karczewski, to be come here from his other store. We want to recognize him and the generosity that he's shown Antioch for so many years at the Piggly Wiggly. We are going to move on to an appointment of Michael Bowling as the chair of the Police and Fire Commission. I'd like to try and confirm his appointment tonight with a motion in a second.
Second.
Motion trustee Masek, second trustee Pierce. Roll call, please.
Berman?
Yes.
Luther?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Pierce?
Aye.
Mason?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
6 voting yes, the motion carries. Mike, will you come up for the, oh, is that here? Okay. Okay, he's gonna be sworn in. It's 0 for 2. All right. I see that. Okay, we're gonna get it right here. Next, I want to introduce a couple of new village employees that are here with us tonight. One is the introduction of Kim Biederman, who's sitting here. Why don't you come up to the podium so we can embarrass you? All right, with more than 15 years experience in executive leadership, business liaison specialist, Kim Biederman's career highlights include serving as an executive director for the Niles Chamber of Commerce and Industry, as well as the Publicity Club of Chicago, the Chicago Area Public Affairs Group, and Chicago Women in Government Relations. Ms. Biederman is also a former planning and zoning commissioner and trustee for the Village of Niles. Prior to her public service roles, Ms. Biederman served as the operation manager for the American Association of Oral Maxillofacial Surgeons, serving as the organization's chief event planner for their annual conferences and workshop. She is married and has 2 kids. Her son Jake graduated from Indiana University and is working for the Chicago Cubs, while her daughter Elizabeth is a freshman at the University of Georgia. Kim loves to travel and plays pickleball. So Kim, why don't you at least introduce yourself to the board and the public?
Hi, I'm Kim Biederman, and thank you for introducing me, Mayor. I'm very excited at this new role for being the business liaison. A lot of what I've done in the past is working with the businesses and economic development, so I'm very excited to bring my experience and bring it here for Antioch and for the community. So thank you.
Thank you and welcome. I know you've already hit the ground running, so thank you. Second, I want to introduce Ms. Kelly Crimmins. Kelly is a Georgia native who, prior to coming to work for the Village of Antioch, served as the PR Community Outreach Specialist for the City of Plano Parks and Recreation Department in Plano, Texas. Her career is deeply rooted in journalism. Kelly has a passion for engaging and educating residents through social media and community events. She is married with 2 kids, step siblings, who both started their first year of college this year. When she's not working, Kelly enjoys being in nature, mostly for hiking and bird watching. She also enjoys photography, is semi-fluent in Spanish, and loves trying new foods. Again, welcome, Kelly. If you want to introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mayor. Where do I begin? Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this family. I am from Texas. A lot of people don't leave Texas, and a lot of people asking me why I left Texas. But I was really wanting to get that small town feel and reestablish my roots. And my husband has family here too, so I'm really excited to be here. If you see me out and about, the bird watching, by the way, was just something that came about over COVID. A lot of people had that happen. But if you see me out and about, I do like to take photos. I'll get video and stuff around town. So look for me, and I look forward to meeting everyone.
Thank you and welcome to you both. Thank you. Anyone sign up for citizens wishing to address the board? Yeah, that's good news. Okay, sir. Just sign in and then bring the sheet over to the clerk and you can address the board. Yeah, while you're doing that, the clerk will read the rules. Is there anybody else that wants to make public comment that didn't sign up?
The opportunity to speak to the board is provided for members of the public who have a comment to make about the business of the board.
The board appreciates hearing from stakeholders and values your thoughts and questions. The board strives to make the best decisions for the village, and public input is very helpful. The board must protect the civility and decorum of this meeting. Please be respectful for the duties of the board and the democratic process of your comments tonight. Please state your name and address your comments to the board. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please be factual and courteous, and board requests that you not make statements that are personally disrespectful or condescending to members of the board or staff. Board does not respond to comments or attempt to answer questions during public comment. Yeah, Mr. Lovell, you can come up to the podium.
Give me an said some neighbors might, I don't know if they wanted to speak tonight or not, but it's right. My name is Robert Opel. Resident of 1262 O'Hare Circle in Red Wing View, Antioch. My wife and I built our home over 17 years ago, knowing that our property's backyard is adjacent to a property zoned for residential use. We had a clear understanding that someday this property could be developed with their homes. My wife and I have spoken at the planning commission meetings expressing our various concerns. We initiated an online petition against the development. As of today, there are 109 signatures. I'm confident that you are all aware of this facility, their background, and the signed petition. My wife has provided that via email to the board members. The only support we've seen in past meetings was a person who would like to DJ at this facility, and another one who currently works at another facility who may be seeking employment. Other online support we have seen has been from people who will not have it in their backyard. We concur if there is a need for this type of facility. However, please realize it's easier to have an opinion about something that won't be in your daily life or directly affect your property value. This development is a rectangle trying to be squeezed into a square peg, and it will not enhance the desirability of homes in Red Wing View. We've personally endured an 87% increase in our property taxes since 2010 to continue to live in one of Antioch's nicer subdivisions. This development will have a negative effect on the property values of the 10 homes that will have a commercial building 30 feet from their property line. The Illinois population is declining, even here in Lake County. The addition of a commercial facility in the shadows of Red Wing View is certainly not going to make our subdivision more attractive to new residents. We are not against new development within the village of Antioch. We are proud of the village we live in and support local businesses. We take care of our home and care about our neighbors. I thank you for allowing me time to express my concerns in this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. There's only one item, which is the approval of the meeting minutes from September 11th. Do I have a motion and a second?
Second.
Motion trustee McNeil, second trustee Pierce, roll call please.
Berman,
Yes.
Luca,
Yes.
Neal,
Yes.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson,
Abstain.
5 voting yes, 1 abstained, motion carries. Item number 2 is consideration and approval of payments of accounts payable as prepared by staff in the amount of $1,785,525.12. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Motion trustee
Second.
Peterson, second trustee Berman. Director Torres or Administrator Gunshot, just want to highlight any of the big items. I think there's a large bowler payment.
Yes, there was a large bowler payment for $937,724. There was a $105,000 payment to Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois. There was a $80,000 Lake County Public Works payment for sewers and user fees. That captures most of the very large purses.
And you were doing, was that the final bowler payment or there more to go?
No, based on the contract, we still have about 1.3 million outstanding.
All right, thank you. All right, any other questions on that? All right, roll call please.
Berman,
Yes.
Luca,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
6 voting yes, motion carries. Next item is consideration and approval of a resolution granting the request from Antioch Chamber of Commerce to host a carnival on May 29th through June 1st, 2025. Resolution number 24-83. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Motion
Second.
trustee Peterson, second trustee Berman. Any further discussion on this item?
Just the, I understand how We had no liability for our insurance policy.
For the village attorney.
Yeah, that'd be a village attorney question.
So I have written and am finalizing a license agreement that the chamber, the representative of the chamber, believe me, has told me that they would be fine signing, that they would. It would cover not only the normal licensure provisions, but it would also have an indemnification provision. It would have a hold harmless, a waiver of all claims against the village. It would acknowledge the fact that the village did not do any due diligence relative to the selection of this carnival, let's say vendor or operator. It did not do any due diligence relative to the machinery. And if there were any costs or expenses incurred by the village in ensuring our safe protection, including an additional insurance policy, that they would be covered by the chamber. And I believe that the executive director is here. And with the chair's permission, I would ask the executive director to agree that that's how we would proceed if this goes through.
Yes, we agree. And I also wanted the board to know, besides the material I gave you 2 weeks ago, currently Fantasy Amusements is working at Lincoln Park Zoo for the month of October on weekends. So they are well respected in our community.
Any other questions? Trustee Pierce?
I just want to be clear as to why I'm gonna vote no on this. I understand the excitement of carnivals. I understand how kids love to go to them and parents think it's something fun to do. But we've learned twice already that there could be injuries to children, and whether it's a money issue or not, my priority would be voting for the safety of the children. So I'd probably vote no.
Trustee Peterson?
I just have a comment. I voted no last year on this. But we have found out that there are carnivals and there are carnivals. That there are owners of carnivals and owners of carnivals. So just like everything else, there are good ones and bad ones. And thank you for going through leaps and bounds trying to find the good one. And a higher end carnival that's respected and used by communities. They have a great track record. And I just want to also say that we passed an ordinance okaying golf carts. And if there's an accident with a golf cart, are we going to ban golf carts? You know, there's accidents every single day and different, all kinds of machinery and all walks of life. It was a terrible thing that happened. This was an isolated incident with a unique situation that hopefully with all of the safeguards that you're putting in place will never happen again. So with that being said, I will support this now.
Roll call, please.
Berman,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes.
Pierce,
No.
Mason,
Yes, because of the safety.
Peterson.
Yes.
All right, 5 voting yes, 1 voting no, motion carries.
Thank you.
Item number 4, consideration and approval of a resolution authorizing the expenditure of Rebuild Illinois funds, the amount of $551,579.14 for the Woods of Antioch pavement reconstruction project, resolution number 24-84. Do I have a motion and a second? Motion trustee Bluthart, second trustee Pierce. Any discussion on this? Roll call, please.
Berman,
Yes.
Luther.
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes.
Pierce.
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
6 voting yes, motion carries. This one is consideration and approval of a resolution authorizing the village administrator to negotiate terms and enter an agreement with MGT Impact Solutions LLC, allowing for an interim finance director. Resolution number 24-85. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Motion trustee Peterson, second trustee Masek. Any questions or discussions on this item? All right, roll call, please.
Berman,
Yes.
Luther.
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
6 voting yes, motion carries. All right, administrators report.
Good evening, everybody. A number of items just to touch on. Just to let you know, we have executed the prior MGT contract for professional outreach services for the finance director search. Through our HR consultant, we're working with MGT to finalize the position announcement. And we hope to get that up and ready by next week, start sourcing candidates. Relevant to the interim finance director position, the mayor and the administration met with the interim finance director candidate yesterday. I think both sides had a good feel. We thought he would be a good fit for us. We felt that he'd be a good partner for him. Based on our current projected timeline, it's been established for the recruitment hiring of Zeta's successor. We hope to be able to hire the next director by the end of the calendar year, of course, with the holidays and kind of muddying up the waters a little bit. Maybe after the first of the year before actually physically able to onboard somebody. But the interim director has made a commitment that he's willing to stay on until we do source a new full-time candidate, and then will help with that transition and training of the new permanent director. As you know, Jim Moran and I attended IML last week. I just want to thank the board for the opportunity to allow us to do that. I think we both took a lot of good information away from the professional development sessions, and this was my first trip down there. I know that I learned a lot about things that are taking place in the community and kind of some creative ways to face unique challenges that small towns are facing. Interim Parks Director Jeff Mihela recently, I met with the Antioch Waves leadership team. We had an opportunity to discuss some of the challenges that they faced in the last couple of years with the swim team taking place at our pool. I think it was a very productive dialogue, and I think we've set a good foundation for next year to help the organization continue to grow and thrive within our community. Staff is currently working with several organizations who are working to raise funds to construct the Antioch Veterans Memorial. We had a meeting last week with representatives of the nonprofit Antioch Veterans Memorial last week, and later this week we're meeting with representatives of another veterans group. As we previously discussed, we seek to work with any group that wishes to help see this important public-private partnership progress. So whether it's a veterans group or any other nonprofit or civic organization wants to help with this project, we're open to working with them. A few weeks ago, the clerk posted an RFP for insurance broker services on behalf of the village. Just want the board to know this was not done due to satisfaction with our current insurance broker, but rather out of our efforts to ensure that we continue to meet some evolving market challenges that all communities are facing, and that we're receiving the best and most cost-efficient brokerage services possible. We work to continue to fill position vacancies. We met a couple of our new staff members this evening. We're currently preparing to extend an offer for employment to fill the account vacancy that's going to be brought in advance of the two announced retirements that are taking place in finance, one prior to the end of the year and then one in early spring. And then we're nearing the end of our interview process for the human resources coordinator position and hope to have an offer out next week or the following. Just a little update on our capital project planning. We're in the final stages of finalizing some of the cost estimates for Village Hall. As we work with FQC and some of the numbers that are coming in. They were a little bit higher than we had hoped, so the architects are back to the drawing board to see if they can maintain some additional structure inside and save some costs to help get those costs down within budget and closer to the target number that we had been planning for early on. And of note, through the collaborative work of our project team, we're working in the right direction to reduce the public works estimated construction costs. There's some creative thinking by Dennis and FQC. So far, we've been able to shave roughly $2 million from the most recent projections that the board was presented with. So we're definitely heading in a positive direction for that. This morning, Director Garrick and I met with Mr. Kunis of Kunis Ford and their leadership team. They've expressed a desire to construct a new and significantly expanded Ford dealership within the community. As the board is aware, pre-pandemic, they had been approached the village with plans to remodel the existing dealership. But based on the current brand trends, they now wish to explore a new dealership that incorporates Ford's latest brand design standards. If these plans were to advance, this would be the first dealership with these new standards anywhere in the Midwest. So it's an exciting opportunity for some new commercial growth in our community. They've got some very impressive projections that I'd be happy to share with the board offline if they're interested. Kind of an unfortunate development with our cafe vendor. Attorney Viselli and his legal team have been working with the applicant feverishly. Unfortunately, due to some terms that they found unacceptable to them but were unnegotiable for us, the deal has fallen through. So Kim is already hard at work trying to identify new candidates, and we're going to work a an accelerated pace to try to find a new tenant for that building and get it open as soon as we can. And unless there's any questions from the board, that will conclude my report this evening.
All right, thank you. Village clerk. All right, any trustee reports? I don't see anything, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn the regular business meeting.
So move. Second.
Peterson, second. Trustee McNeil, roll call please. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned at 6:54. We'll reconvene at
We have to remember that.
yeah, so you guys are stuck sticking around here today, so we'll reconvene at 7 o'clock. All right, let's call the committee of the whole meeting to order at 7:02. Roll call please.
Here.
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 Present.
Present.
Present. All right, nothing on the mayoral report for this, nobody additional signed up. So on to the regular business. First item is approval of the September 11th meeting minutes as presented. Do I have a motion and a second? So moved. Second. Motion trustee Bluthart, second trustee Pierce. Roll call please.
Berman,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Hale,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson,
Abstain.
5 voting yes, 1 abstaining, motion carries. First item is request for liquor license from Hometown Bistro to be located at 982 State Route 59. We have Sunny Judge from BP here to present.
Good evening, my name is Scott. Mr. John and Mr. Slavin. The liquor license is requested by Hometown Bistro. And it's for the physical address that you just listed. That address is the building brick and mortar is owned by both gentlemen, Mr. Sandu and Mr. Judge. And the plan is to have Locale Cantina LLC run a restaurant there called Locale Bar and Grill. The liquor license under Hometown Bistro, they will hold the liquor license and they will execute a licensing management agreement with Locale to run the food.
Questions from the board? Anything on the side over here? Trustee Berman, trustee Luther, trustee McNeil, trustee Pierce.
I think this is a really good idea, and I'm glad to see something's moving forward there for you guys. And the presentation and the thing was well put out and well put together, so I appreciate that also. I do have one question about the liquor license. Will it be issued before the occupancy is granted, or is it after it? Okay, that's my only question. Other than that, I wish you luck. I think it's a great idea.
Trustee Mason? Okay, trustee Peterson?
No.
All right, well, thank you, gentlemen. We will move this. All right, what's the date of this? What's it? The board will agree with the consent agenda? Okay. We'll put on the consent agenda at our next board meeting in 2 weeks. All right, thank you. Okay, next is item 3, review of the police pension fund actuarial valuation. Kevin Kavanaugh from Lauterbach and Amon is on Zoom to give the presentation.
All right, hello, can everybody hear me all right on the village side?
Can hear you.
All right, perfect. I'm gonna just jump in and talk through the results of this year's actuarial valuation report. And I just went ahead and shared my screen. That's gonna show the presentation that I'm gonna go over with the board tonight. And thank you very much in advance for letting me attend remotely to your meeting this evening. Definitely saves me a little bit of time. All right, so without further ado, we'll jump into the results here. So on page 2 in the presentation, you'll have really the key result for this year is that the recommended contribution from the Village of Antioch to the police pension fund for this upcoming tax year, so it'll be for the tax levy at the end of this year to be collected during next year, is the amount $2,388,361, Compared to last year's recommended contribution amount, we've seen an increase of about $101,000. This represents about almost a 4.5% increase. I'll get into some of those factors that led to that substantial increase in just a moment. On this page, you'll see some of the other key metrics that ultimately are used in determining that recommended contribution. I'll skip ahead to that unfunded liability. So the way you can kind of interpret that number is that $23,263,300 is effectively how much it would take to get the pension fund to 100% funded today, in theory. That translates to your funded percent this year being about 43.69% on an actuarial value basis, or on a fair value basis, the fund's sitting at about 42.45% funded. Currently, the funding policy in place under this recommended contribution is to target 100% funding over the next 16 years. Moving to that next slide on page 3, that's going to detail out the different factors that led to the change in contribution this year. So focusing on the column on the right, you're going to see the impact of each item on the recommended contribution. So we expected to see an increase this year of about $74,300. We did observe salary increases greater than expected, so that led to about $11,900 increase there. The actuarial experience is any demographic changes for the fund during the year, which was about a $15,200 reduction. Investment returns were less than expected. This can be a little bit of a confusing one because during the fiscal year ended 4/30/2024, the fund's investment return did exceed expectations. This is measured on a 5-year smoothed basis. It's called the actuarial value of assets. And so on that basis, the fund's return over the last 5 years still falls short. It's about 4.88% versus the expected rate of return of 6.75. So that's why we see the $21,400 increase there. And then finally, contributions less than expected. That's purely due to timing only. The contribution that the village made to the pension fund during this, the fiscal year ended 4/30/2024 was actually about 101% of the recommended contribution for that time period. So the village did contribute the full recommended contribution amount and then some. All said and done, we're looking at that total net increase year over year in the recommended contribution of about $101,800. On slide 4, this is going to show you the two components that make up your recommended contribution. First piece being normal cost. That's the cost of benefit accrual for all of the active police officers. And then the other piece there is paying off unfunded liability. So we've got that $22 million of unfunded liability. It's currently being financed in full over the next 16 years. So this year's payment towards unfunded liability is that $1,969,641. And as you can see, it's definitely the majority of the contribution is made up of that payment towards unfunded liability. Page 5 details out all the demographic changes we observed during the year. At village meetings, I usually don't like to dwell on this level of detail too much. There's a quick summary. We saw 3 new hires, 1 retirement, 3 terminations, and everybody else continued to collect benefits who was collecting. Slide 6 was going to show you for the active members in the police pension fund, how old and how many years of service do they all have? And then we break it down into the tier 1 as well as the tier 2 head count. One thing to note here is that towards the bottom right, you'll see there's this bordered off section. So anyone that falls within that thick bordered off section is going to be a tier 1 retirement eligible individual. So that tells us that as of April 30, 2024, there's 2 of the 30 total active members who are retirement eligible. Basically, they could retire at any point at their discretion. Page 7 is some more demographic info. So we've got your active and inactive member head counts, 30 actives, 35 inactive. Benefit payments paid by the fund last year was just under $1.9 million. In 10 years from now, we would expect the police pension fund to be paying out over $3 million on an annual basis. Change in assets is shown on page 8. I would highlight most notable on this page is the investment returns. What came in above expectation. The total return on investments for your pension fund this past year was over $1.4 million. And that translates to an investment return of about 8.96% net of administrative expenses, compared against the expected rate of return of 6.75. So that's what I alluded to earlier. This year, the fund exceeded investment return expectations by just over 2%. Page 9 is our risk management comments. So this is some metrics we look at for all the funds we work with to identify kind of what are the areas of concern with the pension fund, if any. So we did identify a couple points here. The first item that we look at is we compare the total assets held by the fund against the inactive portion of the liability. So again, in a perfect world, the pension fund would really have the dollar set aside to cover the inactive liability today. And most of the money coming in would be to fund future members' benefits into the, current active members that will eventually retire. So there is a shortfall there. It's about a $13.7 million shortfall. And that's kind of similarly reflected in this second bullet point as the ratio of benefit payments to the fair value of assets. So that basically just tells us if we look at the total pension fund, how much of those assets are used each year to pay benefit payments. So it's 10.61% of the pension fund. The expected rate of return being 6.75. It tells you that, if the fund's paying out 10.61, expected to earn on its investments alone 6.75, that's really not going to be enough to cover benefit payments each year. What that means then is that we, instead of just drawing purely on investment returns to pay benefit payments in a given year, we have to look at some other cash in the pension fund, cash inflows to the pension fund to keep up with benefit payments. So namely, really, those two other sources are going to be employer contributions, made by the village, as well as employee contributions. So ideally, we'd like to see this number, a bit lower. We'd like to see it ideally drop below 6.75%. And really, to the extent that the village keeps funding at the full recommended contribution level, we should, in theory, continue to see this number drop, unless, you see some spike in retirements in a given year. Just notably, last year, this ratio is 10.94%. So we're down to 10.61% this year. So we are trending in the right direction. So we'll hope to continue to see that drop. I'll skip over these next couple things. On page 10, we've got the alternative contribution. So this is kind of what if we followed the state statute in Illinois for minimum funding policy parameters? What contribution amount would that generate from the village side? So this is that determination. We calculate that to be $2,012,341. And that's based on current statutory minimum funding policy is to be 90% funded by the year 2040 or over the next 16 years on a projected unit credit basis. So the key difference is that in our recommended contribution, we're targeting 100% funding instead of 90, same time period, 16 years. And then we use a different methodology for valuing liability. We use entry age normal. This number uses a projected unit credit cost method. Ultimately, that leads to our recommendation being, about $375,000 more than what this alternative contribution is. And moving to pages 11 and 12, I'll wrap up and then I'll be happy to answer any questions if the board has any. Page 11 is just a 5-year history of how much the village has contributed to the pension fund. You can see there's listed the employer contributions. And then we compare that against the actuarially determined contribution. It's basically the recommended contribution trued up for timing to account for the time difference between when those contributions are made and when that amount is determined. So what you can see here is over the last 5 years, the village has a strong history of funding pretty much right at and a little bit above in a couple of years at that full recommended contribution level. So really nice to see the support of the village to the police pension fund. And on average, over the last 5 years, the village has put in about just over 100% of that full recommended contribution amount. That results in this kind of favorable chart on page 12, which is telling us that the fund is projected to be fully solvent or able to pay all future benefit payments for the current membership. So that's what you're looking for when it comes to the GASB 6768 report, and that's the ideal result. So good news on that front for sure. And that's really indicative, the reasoning behind that positive result is because of the village's strong history of funding the police pension fund, which we hope to continue. So that being said, that's my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Questions on this side? On this side? All right, thank you for your thorough presentation. We will put this on the next agenda. Is that right, Zeta?
Yes, that's correct.
Correct? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your time. Item number 4, discussion regarding proposed assisted living facility. Director Garrett.
Yes, thank you. This matter comes before the board this evening for a special use and site plan. All assisted living facilities in R1 district are special use. The applicant is coming before the board this evening. As you recall, back in 2023, they did come in with a proposed concept plan. Again, in some substance, this proposed property development is a 65,000 square foot assisted in memory facility on approximately 5 acres. This did go before the planning commission at several hearings. As a consequence of extensive discussions with the planning commissioners, applicant has added extensive landscaping. It actually incorporated, you can see this right here, it shows you, especially based on the expressed concerns of the residents, the adjacent residents in the nearby subdivision to the east, the applicant has incorporated basically 2 layers of extensive evergreens in an attempt along the berm to provide a 100% buffer from the backyards of the single family homes which are located adjacent to this development. In addition, staff did work with the applicant to incorporate and boost extensive landscaping to the north. To the north of this property, there are also single family homes. So there are single family homes which basically adjoin this property on the north side and on the eastern perimeter. In addition, applicant worked with the Antioch Fire Protection District to incorporate a fire lane. As you see this revised site plan, there is a 20-foot fire lane, which does meet the requirements of the Antioch Fire Protection District on the eastern perimeter of the property, and also along the northern perimeter of the property to provide necessary emergency access to this property. So overall, this applicant did receive a positive recommendation from the planning commission. Applicant's team, including their engineer, is actually here this evening. So if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer those questions, or perhaps the actual developers team. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So on either side.
What was the plan and zoning code on this?
It was 6-0.
So we need the majority of the board to overturn it? That's right, or not?
No, it's not, is it a special use?
It's a special use.
permit? So yeah, you would need a special, you need a majority vote of the board to overturn this. And
So, yeah, I got a whole bunch of questions. So does the fire department ever, did they ever give a report if this is gonna disrupt the 911 service? If there's extra cause this facility, each call is basically a 2-hour call to the hospital, right? So that would disrupt everybody in Antioch's 911 service. Because we're a UV, we're so far away from the hospital.
My name is Sam Martin. I'm actually the Vice President of Oasis Senior Living, and I can answer that question if that's okay. Because our building, we're self-contained, we're an assisted living, so we'll have caregivers, nurses in the building 24/7. So we very rarely ever get 911 involved unless it's a life-threatening situation. So if something basic happens, even if a resident falls, we handle everything within, so we don't really use 911 through our communities very often at all.
Do you have other buildings that you have that type of agreement, so it doesn't become all of a sudden where you guys are 911 dependent?
So we have a total of 34 buildings throughout the United States, and we don't rely on 911 to help within the building unless I said something major happens, there's a death.
No, I get full arrest, I get that, just for lift assistance and whatnot, all of a
We
sudden.
do everything indoors, so we're all self-contained, we do everything right inside the community.
Questions? Anything on this side?
Yeah, you know what, so will this facility, and I apologize if this was already discussed, I couldn't find it in my notes. Will this facility only service Antioch residents, or will this be open to whoever?
It's open to whoever, it is private pay, so it isn't anything that anybody on low income or anything to that effect usually comes to our buildings. Usually these buildings fill up within the area which they're built. We can't deny anybody from another area coming in. Let's say a son and daughter lives in Antioch, but their mom lives in California. They could bring her to Antioch to this community. If that's answering your question.
Thank you.
One last one, would this be comparable to the one over by Zion or the mall over there? I think that's a nice facility.
I believe that is an independent living. And what independent living is, they do have to rely on 911. If I recall.
I think it's both. I think my mother was over there. She had this nursing home assistance and
I could be wrong, but the little bit of research I did, they have a third party company that comes in and does that care. We don't, we employ our own caregivers. So we do everything inside. So a lot of times those communities that have a third party company that come in, they usually leave around 6 o'clock, and then from 6 till 7 in the morning, they're kind of left unattended. So they do call on the 911 quite a bit. Well, we don't have that. We have caregivers in the building 24/7 and we employ them.
that was like a lockdown, so nobody was there at night.
Right, we don't. We have caregivers in the building 24/7.
So I guess this is for the attorney, what would be the next steps though? Because I think no matter what, they deserve to have an answer and the property owners deserve to have an answer, one way or the other. What would be the steps we need?
This would proceed to a meeting of the village board of trustees for a regular meeting. Obviously, there are a bunch of questions. I don't know if that would be appropriate item for the consent agenda. In any circumstances, there are a bunch of questions that came through, so we just go on the agenda just like any other land use matter.
Okay.
Any other questions on this one? Otherwise, we could, trustee, was there,
Not necessarily a question. I don't see it in the packet on here, but you had the picture up there. Is that the only picture you have? Does that include the new landscape design between the residents?
Yes.
Can you show those again, please?
Yes, this 3D this illustration done in Illustrator basically shows you what mature landscape will look like. The applicant has attempted, or an landscape architect is basically trying to reflect what the landscape will look like with maturity. Fair, that is mature
I was
landscape.
gonna say, what is, how many years is that based out on? Is
I
that
think
5 years?
5 years.
5 years.
And then, I'm not sure you want to provide any additional information. I think there's a couple other illustrations. There's another illustration. There is, a retaining wall there. There's some grade changes. But I think this is a good picture. It shows you a double row of evergreen trees. You can see, based on the input from the plan commission, they added an additional layer of evergreen trees adjacent to the proposed fire lane. So there'll be 2 rows. In the middle of that, there will be some berming, some additional landscape.
And current zoning on that piece of property, if this was not to go through on this particular project, what could go there without any problems, or would it all need special approval?
It's R1, so a single family home development could go in there, some duplexes could go in there. I mean, obviously, you'd have to go through platting, so it would, the village board would have an opportunity to review any type of single family project or duplex project. But this R1 property that would be a permitted use.
All right, thank you.
Director Garrett, prior to the next board meeting, could staff prepare a 2-scale plat showing where this building would be in relation to whatever houses may be on the east side of the property?
You think we have an aerial here? I'm not sure if this will help, but I'll be more than happy to write. No, I apologize. Maybe there is not an aerial. I thought there was an aerial. I apologize.
Just looking to see the distances.
That's fine. What I'll do is I can do an aerial with adjacent Red Wing subdivision. I can show the distance between single family homes and this proposed project.
Okay, can you zoom in on that a little bit? If possible.
Yeah, I want it to look like a survey of the place, so.
With dimensions, right?
Dimensions.
Okay.
Okay.
So I believe my recollection is from the backyards to the home, to the actual proposed. It was approximately, 80 feet or 60? 60 feet.
Is there a,
Sorry, so you're saying 60 feet from where?
The back of the yards of single family homes, the back of the yards to the building, 60
But their property line is.
property line.
35 feet from the, as they mentioned, is 35 feet from the building, or where did they come up with 35?
I'm not sure.
I think.
I'm Will Pepper from Bone Consulting Civil Engineers. We're doing the engineering plans for the development. And so our building is set back 60 feet from the rear property line of the neighboring residential lots. And there's probably an additional at least 30 feet from the rear property line to the rear of those houses. So I would estimate at least 90 feet from setback of our building to the actual rear of the house.
So 90 feet from the rear, the physical rear of their house to the
Yes.
side of your building.
The side of our building is set back 60 feet from the rear property line.
Great. I'll be honest with everybody here. I know that property pretty well because my wife is a child play. She's a relative of the Elfreys, which were the original owners of that farm.
That's the
It
building.
was all farmland and she played on there as a kid. And she can tell me all sorts of stories about how nice that piece of property was. And now we have a housing development on it. So, to me, it's progress moves forward. But at the same time, I have to understand the impact. Thank you.
Trustee Berman.
This is gonna sound like a stupid question, but I wanna just put it out there so that everybody is aware of it on the same page. So you had stated that most everything is in-house, correct? You have staff on 24 hours. So then that also means that you guys will be, obviously administering medications.
Yes.
Which also means that for a facility that size, you'll have quite a bit of medication that will be in-house. And that, for me, that kind of causes a concern. There's been issues out that way because of how far off, it's not that far off on the highway. We've had a lot of issues with car break-ins and criminal activity over there, and that does cause me concern. I'm not saying that you guys won't be responsible and keep things locked up, but it's still a concern for me.
So we will be licensed by the state of Illinois. We do go by all their guidelines and standards as well too. Everything is under lock and key. Everything is inventoried. It's the same strict rules as a hospital has. If not, we even have higher standards on top of that. So we have the same standards they do.
Trustee Peterson.
And your building is secure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll just
Trustee
take a
McNeil?
comment to share for the rest of the board. I don't know if anyone else has looked into this because I'm hearing the concerns of the residents, but did want to point out, I think as Director Garrigan wrote, it's not uncommon to put them in a residential setting. My dad was at the Bickford and Gurney, which is on a smaller acreage. It's only 3 acres versus 5. And they did a nice job there with the evergreens and things with the neighbors. And he was there for quite some time. And there were no issues. I can't speak. I understand what the residents are saying. It's not my backyard. But I've done a little bit of research. There's a couple in Lake Zurich, a couple in Vernon Hill, Sunrise and Buffalo Grove. So it might be worth looking at and seeing and comparing what we could do for the residents to make it cohesive with their home. So just wanted to throw that out there. There's other examples in the area that are local.
Absolutely. All right, thank you. We will put this on the agenda in 2 weeks, regular meeting. Thank you for coming. Speaking of thank you for coming, I saw a local celebrity walk in the room a months ago.
Oh, he finally showed up?
He's here. We're the hardest working guy in Antioch and Zion. So I just want to take a moment to recognize this, I guess, a bittersweet recognition since it's been such a, I guess, a constant business in Antioch and more than just a local business that many people visit on a regular basis and have grown up with, and generations of family shopping at the Piggly Wiggly. We want to thank David Karczewski, who's here tonight, for all his generosity. There is a void of generosity that's going to exist after he closes the Piggly Wiggly that I don't know how this community is going to backfill that void, but hopefully somebody will step up and understand all the stuff that Dave has done for not only the community open arms mission, the Rotary Club, the Lions Club, every food basket that I've ever done in the
Fishing
last
has
20
no
years.
boundaries.
Fishing has no boundaries. The amount of things that he has done and given back to the community is actually unbelievable, and I can't even put it into words how much time and money he has given back to the community. So as a recognition for all of that, and again, a plaque doesn't do it justice, but I'd like to give Mr. Karczewski this plaque that says, in appreciation of your leadership, generosity, and service, which has made a profound impact by setting the standard of excellence for business everywhere. The Village of Antioch recognizes David Karczewski with heartfelt gratitude. We thank you for your exceptional service and for making a positive difference in our community. And I'd like to present this to you. It's dated today, September 25th, 2024. So Dave, thank you.
Thank you very much for this acknowledgement and of everything. I know when my wife and I, 20 years ago, this past Friday, purchased this store, the one in Zion, one of the things that we said we were gonna do going forward was be a part of the community and give as much as we could to the community. Just Antioch in particular became home for me. I slept in Burlington. I currently sleep in Lake Geneva, but Antioch's always been, when I'm here, I'm home. The Zion's been a big piece of it too, and that's where I was earlier, but it's just, it's always been a good thing. It's always been, felt good to be accepted here and stuff like that, and I enjoyed being, on the chamber board, the Lions board, involved with the Rotary, schools, trying to guide students and stuff like that. Anything I could help out with and stuff like that just came natural for me, and we enjoyed it, and we didn't put get anything like this. It was just what you should do, and I think there's a lot of people in this community that I think back when I first started, Brad Ibsen was a big guy on my shoulder all the time, guiding me through stuff. And the people, his wife Ellen, Chuck Cermak, there's a lot of them that have been there for me over the years, and just kind of give me that little nudge in the right direction once in a while when I'm having a down day or something. So, but thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So,
And a plaque does not do justice to what you've done for this town. So thank you.
Quickly say, I was here 20 years ago when you did take over the pig, and I know everybody at that point was like, who's this Dave guy? Over the years, I think you're more than the pig, you're a friend, and I want to thank you for being a friend, because you've been a friend to all of Antioch, not only just for me. Thank you.
I first worked in this store 40 years ago, in 1984. So it's the first time I stepped foot in as an employee working for the big Midwest. But then, like I said, 20 years ago on September 20th, that was awesome. So,
All right. Well, enjoy your free time.
thank you.
All right. Oh, Paul, you can step up here.
Yeah, there you go. So you don't know that David also played Santa for the Chambers. So we would compare notes, what days we were doing Santa. And to this day, every time I walk into the store, I see David, it's like, hey Santa. And I say hi. And then he's always making jokes about Rudolph, which I don't tell Rudolph because he probably would kick David. But personnel at the pig got so used to him calling me Santa, I go up to the checkout line and it's the first thing I hear, hi Santa. So
I made sure you got my new address.
yeah, he doesn't want to be forgotten as far as Christmas. So for everything he does, he's probably one of the underrated people here in Antioch. So thank you.
Thank you.
I just want
Roger, you do what?
I wanted to thank you, David, my husband and son. Go to Piggly Wiggly all the time. We're all very sad to see you go. I remember my son going in there for a little shopping cart and just my husband ended up coming home from one of those little shopping carts. And I wanted to thank you because now we can have that little piece of memory forever. So thank you for everything that you've done for our community.
Thank you, Dave. All right, well, enjoy your evening. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks for making time to come over here. I know you're busy with lots of things right now. All right, next item on the agenda is the discussion regarding a concept plan for CarMax. Director Gary.
The matter comes before the board this evening.
Just for the record, Trustee Peterson is accusing himself from this discussion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Again, this matter comes before the board this evening for a proposed concept discussion for a proposed CarMax. The proposal this evening, and actually the whole development team for CarMax is here, and they have an extensive PowerPoint. So I want to very briefly provide a very brief synopsis and turn over to Mr. Goldsmith and their development team. This is a proposed 86-acre development as part of the Antioch Corporate Park. This proposed property is currently zoned M1. This used to be a permitted use. The comp plan does identify this property as a business park. The applicant is proposing a distribution and auction facility on this proposed property. And again, this is a concept. So really the purpose of this meeting is to introduce the village board to this proposal and the contents and context of this property adjacent to the Antioch Corporate Park. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to council, and he'll provide a summary, and there is an extensive PowerPoint that the development team will go through this evening. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Goldsmith. I'm with the Dykema Law Firm. I'd like to just kind of give you an overview of kind of the market and the project, and then the representative CarMax will tell you what the specifics are, and then we will give you technical information from our consultants so that you have a full range of information on the project. So I've been doing warehouse distribution as part of a residential and commercial and industrial real estate practice. It's one of the things I do. Been doing for over 40 years, and I can tell you that the warehouse distribution market, which is really the primary goal of that park, has had its ups and downs. Tomorrow I finish a 1,200-acre park that was entitled in 1976. So, and this is with very sophisticated developers, but the market changes from time to time. And in the last 10 years, we had a really flurry of warehouse distribution buildings for a while. And then when the interest rates went up and the risk became higher, unless you had a user, most of the developers would not bring in a building. They wouldn't buy it on spec, they wouldn't build on spec. So that changed the market in dramatic ways. And I think you're seeing that by the fact that there's been really no activity in this park for a long time. So CarMax offers you a different use. This happens to be in a sweet spot for their use for a facility that will be described by Mr. Hudak. And it's appropriate for the use for the site. It's they're licensed in the state of Illinois to operate as a used car dealer, both for their retail, which is not at this site, and their wholesale, which is at this site, so that it's an auto dealership like any other used car dealer. And so with that as a starting point, I'd like to bring the representative from CarMax, and he'll give you an overview of the project.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you for your time tonight. If we drone on too long, give us the signal, and we'll try and step it up. I guess they've summarized what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to introduce CarMax as who knows the company, give you a flavor of our organization, and then take you through a little more in-depth description of what we're going to do on site. Bruce gave you a little snapshot, and then I'm gonna have Kelton come up and talk about the site design and some of the, what I think are thoughtful introductions of concerns that your staff had raised to us. So I think the site's laid out in a way that accommodates a lot of those issues, if you want to get into that. And one of the other things staff recommended was that we try and put some actual definitive numbers to the economic benefits to our project would be, and we've got our economic expert here to walk through that. So that's really what we're going to talk about tonight. I guess the one thing I want to talk about or start with is, I think the project was introduced as an 86-acre project. I might clarify that a little bit. It's an 86-acre site. The project itself has 25 or 30 acres of undeveloped wetlands and a floodplain that you can't develop on. And as we go through the more technical sides of the presentation, you'll see that. So, so on the slides behind me, I don't know if you have them on the screen. This is sort of the brags about the company. Here's who we are. We're a Fortune 200 company. We've got over 240 retail locations across the country. We employ 30,000 people. I don't know if anybody on the board knows that CarMax was started in 1993 by Circuit City. Anybody aware of that? And we operated as a subsidiary of Circuit City for 7 years. In 2000, we became wholly owned from the New York Stock Exchange for our own company. So we've been separate from them for the last about 24 years. So this slide's here to sort of talk about our culture. When our CEO just talks to the employees, he always mentions two things: put people first and do the right thing. And when they're trying to fill roles, when we're trying to interact with the public, the way we interact with each other, those are sort of the underlying messages that we're reminded of. So the type of company we are is to be, respectful and professional in everything we do. As a result of that, you can see some of the accolades that are on that slide. The one I like to point out is the 100 Best Places to Work by Fortune magazine. It's 20 years running. We've had that distinction. Even when the world got turned on its ears in 2008, when the residential bubble burst. If you recall, those financial institutions and automobile manufacturers that suffered the worst. Remember, General Motors became Government Motors. I don't remember that. Companies like AIG, Lehman Brothers, Belliet. Well, we were both. We're car dealers and we're a financial institution, yet we still made it on that list. So I think that sort of underscores the culture that we have at CarMax. And I wanted to talk about that briefly. Maybe one other thing, the line up there about fulfilling careers. There's all types of job opportunities and growth. Our now retired former CEO was the first buyer of our company. He'd wear OP shorts and a t-shirt, and if you got a car on the lot, he'd make an offer on it. And that was back in '93 when the company first started. And by the time I started in 2006, he was running the place. So we really are a company that tries to provide all kinds of opportunities for talented people to advance themselves. CarMax Foundation is how our organization tries to give back to the community. You can see there's $100 million up on the board. That's how much money we've given away through the foundation. But I guess what I want to focus on here is how we try and decentralize that giving. A lot of companies do it in their hometowns and people there benefit. We try and push it out to where our employees are. And maybe just personal experience. I served on my children's swim team, 501c3 board. I was on the board of directors. But because I served on a board, CarMax would pay them $1,000 a year for the time that I was on the board. And then for every hour I donated, they paid, that time was $10 an hour. I think now it's $15 an hour. So that's the way we try to encourage employees to get involved in the communities and do what's right. I'm going to talk about the proposal. We call facilities like this inventory centers, and through our history, the functions that are going to be on the site, we've done at our retail locations. So if you've ever been to a CarMax, some of them are small, some are larger. The smaller ones are sales and only, we're just selling cars out of that facility. But the larger ones, we're doing wholesales operations on those sites and or we're doing reconditioning. You know, that's check the tread depth, make sure the brakes are good. Our whole 125 point inspection, you know, vacuuming up Cheerios. Those are the things we do with reconditioning centers. And that's what we're going to be doing here at this facility. So I think is a discussion of the auction wholesale operation. So this isn't open to the public. It's only licensed dealers who are pre-authorized by CarMax to come and participate. Before COVID, all of our auctions were done on site. So there'd be an auctioneer doing his thing, you know, who give me now, who 1,200, 1,300, all that stuff. We still have auctioneers, but when COVID came, there was a lot of places across the country where people couldn't come into our buildings. So we went 100% online. So we still have cars getting pushed through our lanes. We just have a camera connected to the screen and people who bid from their home offices or wherever they are. Now that we're sort of past COVID, we want to get the opportunity to operate this back in person. And we started to introduce that back to the marketplace, but we're finding our customers don't really want to come back. Maybe 10 or 20% of them come in person and the rest continue to buy virtually. One thing that happens on the site though is folks can show up 2 days prior, kick the tires with the cars before they bid on it, and then we require after the auction, they remove whatever they purchased within 2 days as well. And the last point on the slide, sort of, it's a comparison between us and probably other wholesalers. Maybe Manheim, you've seen a Manheim somewhere around here. They're probably, I think they're the biggest wholesaler in the country, but they're more of a consignment operator. They don't own the cars. Every car that we run through our auction facility, we purchased from a customer and we're going to sell it. And you can see we've got like a 97% throughput. So these cars aren't sitting around for weeks on end. The 3% that don't sell, we're just going to run through next week and have a high success with that. On the inspection and reconditioning, I introduced it a little bit. Cheerios, tread depths, 125 point inspection, touch-up paint, paintless dent removal, all those types of things. Whatever it takes to bring the car from, you know, a trade-in condition into a retail condition, we'll put it on our lot and feel good about the product. So the last slide I'm going to speak to, again, stop there, it's 86 acres. It's not all usable. You'll see that in some coming slides. Total building size on the site's about 49,000 square feet of building. We're probably going to do at maturity about 1,300 cars a week through the wholesale facility. And then we're going to recondition about 240 cars a week. It's going to be about 38, I guess by now with inflation, probably $40 million investment in the community. You can see the payroll that's up there. Auction payrolls a little over 2 million and reconditions a little under 7. And then it's 190 associates that we're going to be hiring. We sort of a breakdown up there. We've got 20 managers, we got some technicians, we got some reconditioning associates, and then we just have inventory and business operations folks on the site as well. So with that, that concludes sort of an introduction to who we are. Maybe when we're finished, if you have additional questions, I can try and answer. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, board. Thanks for your time. I'd like to dive into some of the site-specific site layout of this site. First off, this aerial view from the east. Wanted to get a little bit of a backstory on where we started with the village of Antioch. Initially, we had wanted to develop this more eastern parcel down here at the bottom of the screen. And after some preliminary conversations with Michael and staff, we decided to move to this more western parcel, which you see, obviously, which is more advertising to what we do. Another point I wanted to point out on this shot here is the water tower here. Obviously, you can see that in the top of the photo. I'll get onto some different perspectives here coming soon, but just wanted to make that a point of reference. Our next aerial shot is our south-facing shot. Wanted to point out a couple of points here.
the main point being, the vegetation that lies there on the western portion of the site. I know after preliminary conversations with staff, that was a point of worry, was the viewability from residential from the west. So that's just an aerial there showing that vegetation, the existing vegetation, on that eastern portion of the site. Here's our north viewing aerial. The main point I wanted to make here was the existing wetland vegetation that is living on the north end of our site here. Again, I know that was a point of contention, was being able to see our site from any residential units from the north. As you can see there, that's an existing wetlands that's flourishing from what we know of. Jumping onto our highway perspectives, we did some 3D modeling to try and attempt to show the lack of visibility actually from the road to our CarMax site. The location of these perspectives were taken in a lower elevation than where our entrance grade level will be, any fencing, anything of that sort will be. So you won't be able to see our fencing. You might potentially be able to see some berming, and then the top of our building, which is consistent, which is already there with handy foil. This is another perspective with potential landscaping buffering. As you can see there, the handy foil building is pretty prevalently obvious, and then you can't really see our CarMax service building there in the back. Another perspective, this one was shot from the more eastern portion of 173. If you can see the arrows there in the top left corner. Same thing, just wanted to get a good perspective on the visibility of the CarMax building compared to handy foil. Here's our street view from Peterson Drive. I know this was a point of contention as well, and like I mentioned before, wanted to point out the water tower there. As you can see that water tower and the center of handy foil right here north of it, this white area here, but pretty vegetated area with a good amount of coverage. Moving on to our site plan. So initially, this was our initial site plan. We worked with Michael Garrigan. There were concerns about layout, proximity to the road, and then obviously not utilizing the entire site. So we landed on this site plan, which does allocate for 200,000 square foot of industrial use there at the southern portion of the site bordering Highway 173. This does push our building back a little bit. The distance from 173 to our first building would be 1,317 feet, and then an additional 1,740 feet from our first building to the first residential unit on the west. If you can see this 1740 here, as well as numerous landscaping islands and buffers along our detention pond, which I'll get into soon. We feel we've done a good job of covering that side of the site. As I mentioned, 200,000 square foot of industrial use has been allocated for in this southern portion, and no issues have arisen there. Into the site plan details, I know this was a point of contention on how the cars were actually parked. Typically, CarMax parks these cars in pod type systems. Cars come in and out, as Steve mentioned earlier, putting cars in, pulling cars out as need be. That arrow on the left over here that shows how the cars will move in and then pull directly into the vehicle staging area, where they'll be inspected and ultimately fixed up. This is our customer parking. Just wanted to give a good picture on that. Same with landscaping. Same thing, just some site plan details. I won't go super heavily into these landscaping plans unless you guys want. Same with a lot of the civil stuff. We do have Jordan here from Tinley Horn if you guys do want to get super technical. But here's just a snapshot of our landscaping plan. As I mentioned earlier, we have this line of landscape trees on the eastern parcel of the building, as well as along the proposed storm management pond.
One of the things I wanted to point out, Kelton has mentioned it, he was saying how our fence line along the front of the site isn't going to be visible unless I just explain it a little bit more. So where our driveway comes in on, I'll call it Handful Drive, exactly true. But there's a berm that's gonna be along the entire right side of that entrance drive, except where our driveways turn up into a parking lot. On top of that berm is the same elevation, that's the top of the fence. That's along the front facade of the building. So if you're on the access drive, all you see is berm. And then if you're down on 173 looking up, you're not gonna see any fences either, because the top of the berm, if you're looking up at the top of the berm, you're not gonna be able to see the fence either. So just wanted to explain that a little bit more. Thanks.
A little bit more detail on our landscaping plan, obviously going in line with all code requirements, anything of that sort, landscape buffer, landscape islands. We can touch on the traffic study, because this is another point of contention that was brought up by the team early in this process. We did have Kimley Horn, our civil engineer, run a traffic study at the intersection of Illinois 173 and Gregory Drive. We maxed out all possible lots to an industrial use, that being Andy Foyle, a lot below, CarMax's, as well as everything else in that area. And that does not trigger any sort of intersection. They ran that on different aspects, and I do have Kimley Horn here as well if you guys want to get into detail on that. If not, I'm going to hand it over to our economic analysis. David, thank you.
Well, you know I'm not David, but he'll be here shortly. So I want to make it clear, that we've had a very good interactive discussion with staff. So when Calton talks about it's not an issue of contention. We were asked to address how's the traffic going to affect, what are you going to do with stormwater, what are you going to do with floodplain, what about the wetlands? And the overall message that we want to make to you is this is a very difficult site to develop. And so IDI, who originally designed the site, contemplated 20+ buildings on the site. You're going to be lucky to have 5 buildings on the site, including our buildings, including Handy Fall, including Fisher Paper, because there's so much wetland and floodplain in this site that it's just not buildable. So I just want to make it clear. And so all the things he was doing, sightline, stuff like that, staff said, well, we know residents may be concerned about, are they going to see the building? Well, Handy Fall is a much bigger building height-wise, and these buildings are lower, and because of the berming and the landscaping and the fencing, if it were a concern, and the distance, I mean, it's a 1/4 mile from the road, you're just not going to see it. So we would be responsive to the village's concerns about all these issues and try to be incorporate that in the plan.
Good evening. My name is David Miller, and I'm with Johnson Research Group, an economic development consulting firm located in Chicago. Our firm was retained by CarMax to examine the potential economic and fiscal impacts from the proposed inventory center. For this project, we worked with colleagues to develop an economic model for the construction and operations of the CarMax facility using IMPLAN, which is an industry standard for modeling economic and fiscal impacts from development projects. Impacts include overall economic output from the project, job creation and employment income, as well as tax revenue generation, excluding real estate taxes. We developed a separate set of property tax estimates for the project. As mentioned, the inventory center will generate 190 direct jobs at the facility and 9.2 million in payroll. The project will induce the creation of 58 jobs and generate 1.6 million of earned income annually among businesses in the village based on the household spending of CarMax employees. Total tax revenue generated by the project site for the village is estimated at $381,000 annually following full stabilization. This includes $363,000 in general tax revenue, like sales and use taxes, utility taxes, and $18,000 in property tax revenue for the village. As mentioned, the site is in the Antioch Corporate Center TIF district, so that $18,000 in tax revenue, approximately $1,425 would go to the village's corporate fund, and about $16,500 dollars would go to the TIF. The site currently generates $1,425 for the village's corporate fund and $389 for the TIF district. Construction of the CarMax facility could generate $70,000 in general tax revenue for the village in 205 construction jobs. I also apologize, I have a cold. I'm more annoying sounding than usual. I'm happy to take any questions. If you have them, you may have gotten a copy of our report in your packet. This is the economic portion of the show, so I'm happy to put anyone to sleep with any questions.
Any questions on this portion?
Great, thank you.
She's coughing up here. School's in session, I guess. Everyone's coughing.
I have lots of
We just have some elevations here for any questions or concerns. Other than that, we appreciate you guys' time and look forward to hopefully working with you guys in the future.
So I'm gonna take some questions from trustees, and I guess before I do that, I'll defer to Director Garrigan and the village attorney on after this discussion, what is the next step in the process? Is it simply bring this to the village board for a vote on the site plan, or is there interim phase that needs to happen?
I think staff is generally, and the applicant is generally looking for some just general input. The applicant has actually filed a site plan and platting, final plat for the record, so that will be coming before the board potentially in November or December, potentially November. So we're just generally looking for questions, general input, board's perspective.
If this project is approved, end of this year, beginning of next year, when do you anticipate the project would actually begin or start working at the site?
What we currently have it targeted in our schedule is March of 2028.
Opening?
So how would that turn into construction timeline? Start constructing 2027 or
Takes about a year to build it approximately. I gotta figure.
Questions on this side? Trustee Luther.
Just a quick one. I don't see anything here about signage. Was there any plans on any type of sign along 173, or would it?
We expect the CarMax operation. It's not a retail store, so we're not terribly obsessed about signage. However, I know Mr. Mayor, you had said be interested in seeing some signage along the frontage. That's perhaps Bruce can address a little better.
So there are provisions in the PUD about signage, and the sign that's there is really the major sign, so it'd have to be some accommodation, and the question would be, if it's a sign, would it have, I would think all the major users would want to have their names on the sign. And I would call that a monument sign with identification of the major users in the park. So we're not opposed to doing that as long as it's conforming with the PUD and the development agreement that's approved. Or it's modified.
Thank you. Nothing further. Trustee McNeil.
Just a question, maybe for Director Garrigan, I'm not sure, or maybe even Director of Public Works, but is there any risk, I know that was kind of mentioned here about the environmental impact to the creek with like the residents, are we concerned that maybe the location might cause flooding if it's in this floodplain and the water's going? Has any of that been maybe addressed?
No, there has been consistent expressed concern by staff about the potential impact on Mill Creek tributary. One of the things that staff has requested and would like to continue to work with the applicant when he comes through formal site plan review is what we call BMPs, best management practices, and what we call incorporation of a treatment train. In addition, there's extensive wetlands through there, so there'll be some extensive buffering to try to mitigate any impact on the Mill Creek. But that's expressed concern with staff. So our engineer on staff will continue to work with the applicant through the site plan review process to ensure there'll be absolutely no impact on the Mill Creek territory.
I'll give you the layman's explanation, and I'll have the engineer give you the other part.
Well, you're giving a layman's explanation.
I'm very good at that. I've spent years learning from engineers. So it's a generative process. So you require us to retain 100% based on a 100-year floodplain. I'm sorry, 100-year rainfall. And so it's designed in the detention pond to take that. Then the question is, what happens to ensure the quality of water? And I'll let him answer that.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jordan Tossett. I'm with Kinley Warren. Thanks for kind of the high level overview, Bruce. Per the Lake County Stormwater Ordinance, they require that you treat a certain percentage of the runoff based on your impervious area. We've provided that storage within our stormwater management facility. And then in addition to that, we have enough storage to hold, as Bruce mentioned, the rainfall from the ground. So as far as environmental concerns go, we designed to the Lake County Stormwater Ordinance.
Thank you. And I'm giving other questions about the environmental impact, but maybe one more for Dr. Garrigan, if that's okay. Just, thank you. Just a clarification. So I know in your notes, you said that the M1 zoning included used vehicles as like ancillary, but then I know on one of CarMax's slides, they said it is consistent. So are they asking us to do a change, or did I just read that?
They're not, I mean, a car dealership is actually a permitted use in the M1. And there was some discussion of what this constitutes, but this clearly is a wholesale car dealership. So it would comply with the Bush's zoning.
Michael, one more comment. I know this is way premature, but can we make sure if or when this does get approved, that when the construction starts, that we're making sure that what happened at the recent dealership with the rain and the runoff, and that those systems are in place when the construction starts?
Yes, we can look, as part of our engineering, HR Green can look at sediment basins to try to minimize any impact on sediment loss.
Thank you. Trustee Pierce?
I'm glad you asked it, because I was gonna ask about that too, because you always, whether it's Walmart, Menards, Pittman.
They start digging in pores for a week.
Dig them all, the stormwater, they come in there and start clearing the land so they can put their stormwater protection in. And right in between clearing the spot and putting the stormwater protection in, we get 1,000-year rain, and then it runs everywhere, all the hell and back, and we've got stormwater management all over us, and the residents screaming and shouting. So that will be one of our concerns on making sure things are in place before you start moving dirt around, so.
Yeah, that's definitely a valid concern. Just based on the existing topography of our site, it's all draining towards where our pond would sit. So it wouldn't be that difficult to install a temporary sediment basin, which would eventually become the actual stormwater management facility.
Are you guys all out of Charlotte?
I'm local here in Chicago.
Okay.
I'm Richmond, Virginia. He's from Denver.
Denver, he doesn't sound like Denver.
Yeah. Those two guys are somewhat local.
Okay, I was just curious. I got my sister-in-law works at the CarMax in Charlotte, so she's in their HR department or something. I don't know if she is. So, anyways.
Trustee Mason. All right, this is a very good and thorough presentation. Just for the record, I will say that this applicant did everything that staff asked them to. I mean, originally there was some concerns from residents that maybe were near the project, and CarMax and staff addressed those concerns, and all the people that were first not so certain about the project have assured me that they're comfortable with it. Correct. So, that good work by all. All right, thank you. And then you guys will let us know when you're ready to come back. All right, thank you.
I'd just like to say, as a compliment to the village, that your staff has been exceptional in terms of working with us and interacting so that we can come up with a plan that we find acceptable. And we greatly appreciate that kind of professionalism and also your careful consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Somebody want to grab Mary?
Mr. Denver, by the way. I was born in Lakewood.
Really?
Lived in Bomar, Aurora, Centennial.
Our
all those
office
places.
is right there in Lakewood, Denver West. right
Okay.
Right in the middle.
Hey, it's a great town.
It is, it's awesome. Thank you guys for your time. You're welcome.
Was she asleep?
All right. Number 6, discussion regarding an ordinance waiving building permit fees for disabled veterans. Director Garrigan, I assume this will probably be a pretty quick discussion.
Yes, very, Your Honor, this matter comes to the board this evening, as you well know, or maybe don't, there has a state statute change. Basically, requiring municipalities to waive, building permit fees, for disabled veterans whenever it relates to having that disabled veteran making improvements to their residence. Again, these are for residences only, to basically accommodate their handicap or their disability. So again, this was a state statute change. Based on that, we are proposing this change in section 13-1-6F of our municipal code, which would make us compliant with the state statute.
All right, Trustee Pierce.
Just in the interest of all clarity, I am in the middle of a year-long debate with the VA on disability issues, so someday they have to take advantage of this. My concern is, why aren't we just, you said it just focuses narrowly on accommodations for the disability?
Whenever any improvements be made to relate to that, basically that disability. So making that more accommodating.
What would be the financial impact if we charge no permit fee? What would be the financial impact if we charge no disability, no disabled veterans?
Regardless of the project.
Regardless of the
It
project.
would be minimal. I mean, we don't track how many disabled veterans or permits that come through the process, but I suspect de minimis.
I think we should just make it that out. If they have a disability that is certified, verifiable, the government display that they're a veteran, then they should have a way.
Give them a full exemption. Yeah, okay. So let's tweak the language to give them a full exemption.
Yeah.
Understood. We'll bring it to a vote next time.
Okay, very good.
All right, thank you. On the consent, yeah. Thank you. All right. Last item is a housekeeping item. Number 7, discussion regarding ordinance amendment relating to addressing meetings. I think this came out as a cleanup on our when we went away from the liaison reports kind of thing, and then we kind of have a informal. Does any trustee have a report? It's to kind of formalize the process. So the trustee wants to make a report, they can submit it to the clerk. Is there any? I think the language came from.
Village of Stager, the Village of Stager, implemented this with a lot of success to ensure that there's some order relative to board procedures for trustees' reports and ensuring that reports weren't being given as counter reports to a report that was given, and it created a better environment for the meetings and more public disclosure in a more organized manner.
And then there was a housekeeping matter, I think, raised by Trustee Bluthart offline that our code still references the fire district or fire,
Our police and fire
commission. So we should eliminate the fire portion of that.
We can take care of that.
Any questions or any discussions about this? It's really just just formalizing the procedure to get something to Lori for the agenda. All right, we'll move that to the next meeting. Any other consents? Any other business? All right, departments, communications. Is this your last one of these?
Yeah.
Okay.
As you guys saw earlier, we have a new communications and event specialist that started this week with the village, Kelly Crimmins. This week, we're working to get her acclimated, in the bathroom and lunchroom, how that is. And she's also getting going on the Treat the Streets and Harvest Fest event coming up next month. So we're finalizing some things with that.
getting some promotion underway. She's also working on messaging for some fall events that are coming up. So she's getting acclimated pretty quickly. It's exciting to have her on board. Just a little backstory, when she applied, our applicants for this position were, it was exciting to see the quality of applicants that we got, and she was right from the get-go. Somebody that I was excited to talk with, and excited she's here. So I think you guys are going to be very happy with her. Over the past month, I've had a chance to work on a few of the events that we've had. We wrapped up our It's Thursday concerts and farmer market events. We had our small town smokeout earlier this month, had a few thousand people at the band shell for some barbecue and country music. Bands were excellent, and the vendors, the food vendors that were there appeared to all sell out of food. It was towards the end of the night, so it wasn't really disruptive. It was good. It was a good night for them, profitable. So that was good news there. In this past Saturday, we had our fall wine walk event. Over 450 people having wine and enjoying visiting our downtown shops. Another successful event there. And then also earlier this month, we submitted our OSLAD grant request for the $600,000 for Centennial Park.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you. Parks departments. Jeff? Hi, folks. Hello. Got a little cold out in the field, so I had to bundle up tonight for training, but thanks for having me. Just a couple of really high points for the seasonal type of operations. The pool, as you know, closed not too long ago. We probably could have kept it open if we had lifeguards because it's so hot. But I just wanted to give some, maybe some high points of pool season this year. You know, we were open every day from late May through Labor Day, except for 3.5 days, which is pretty dramatically good as far as records for being open. Sold, let's see, total of 283 pool passes. They were used 4,263 times. So that's an average of 15 times per pass holder. So that's a pretty good benefit. We had 15,662 visitors at the pool this year, total people walking through the gate. And it does not include our camps in our parties. We had 110 kids attending Monday through Friday for camps. We rented out the facility 54 times. And they were sold out in May. And we hit capacity 12 times, which means we couldn't let anybody in anymore. People left. So that's indicative of a very hot summer, but at the same time, very successful. Lastly, at the pool, 494 kids went through swimming lessons. So it's a wonderful thing to teach that life skill. So they come back when they're grown-ups. Couple other things, preschool updates. We have 7 out of 7 classes running with a total of 76 kids, as Jim mentioned. We worked on the Centennial Park plan, master plan, and we're very glad. And I think it's a really competitive, application compared to some ones I put in. We had to break it into phases because of the contributions and splits. But the first phase, major highlights include the basic renovation of the tennis courts, the shelter, the playground, and adding a little trail on the bottom with fitness stations. Those are all, point getters per se for the people that rate these grant applications. So I think it's a pretty strong one, but we'll see what the competition is. I think there's about $56 million rent the kitty for that right now. I'm sure there's going to be over 100, applications. And that fund is funded by the basic real estate transfer tax. That's where that money comes from. So traditionally it used to be 20 to 30 million, but since we're all buying and selling things nowadays, that kind of doubled. And let's see, lastly, the Parks Commission met last week. They were thrilled to see the master plan for Centennial Park. And we talked about dedicated pickleball courts and where they might be best served. And I don't know if you're familiar with pickleball as much as I am, because I had to build some. But if you build dedicated pickle courts in any type of numbers, meaning 4 or 6 courts, you'll have a group of people, not just 2 or 3. It's a social gathering as much as it's a sport gathering. I basically recommended to staff here and also to the Park Commission
strongly consider if in fact the village of Antioch is gonna build dedicated pickleball courts. To put them at, basically, Osmond Sports Park, Tim Osmond Sports Park. I think that would be the ideal place because of the parking available, the restrooms available and so forth. So, and they were in support of that. So, the little contingency is they wanted the township to kick something in. They didn't really define what something was. Questions?
Where are we with the rules for the new Seaport Park?
Yeah, the rules were basically reviewed by the committee again because they were initially looked at in August, brought it back to staff with tweaks and things as far as verbiage, clarification, there was additions. So I think the rules are in place in really the ordinance form, which allows the staff to update those rules accordingly. Because I believe you passed the ordinance back in August, which allows the updates, of those rules on a continual basis.
And when are we gonna start posting?
I've talked to Dennis about that because he's got the money.
It's just a discussion for the board because, we don't have any rules up there. And I look like a real a-hole when I'm sitting there yelling at some kid for BMX biking his bike through the playground area where little kids are playing. You got kids standing on top of the buildings. You got kids peeing in the creek, all things that are witnessed there. And, there's no rules that I can at least post to and say, see, the rules are right there. And they're like, well, who are you telling me the rules? I'm like, I'm one of the guys involved.
I'm Santa.
Yeah. Dave and Paul are Santa.
But real quick, I'm working with Randy at Impressions County, just got in some new sign holders that we're gonna be putting signs on, so we're in the design phase of finalizing that stuff, so you should have it soon. I'll keep you guys updated as we make progress.
There are signs.
A couple,
that have, like,
but
things that you're not supposed to be.
not that I want to limit the purpose signage, but maybe even like some things that like say like smile you're on camera. I don't think there's so many cameras on it that might be less signs all over.
Good idea.
And I think the board needs to revisit, like, God bless our CSOs, but as soon as they get a prisoner in there, because Lake County won't take prisoners, our CSOs are gone. So at some point, we're gonna need to visit security at that park. I don't know whether we ever anticipated it would be such a popular location. We knew it'd be appreciated and liked, but I don't think we knew that every parking space would be full every nice day. And it'd be going crazy there.
It's a wonderful place. I can provide that perspective from the many parks I've been part of developing. It's a glorious place. Keep in mind, as far as the rules, you can have 150 rules. Somebody's going to break 151.
They're inventive. They think of things I don't even think of, but my point is I think the board needs to discuss at some point possibly paying for security there during the major hours.
Yeah.
Or on the weekends or something, because this is, it reaches a point over there where you're just like, I'm gonna be on national TV because my head just exploded and somebody's gonna videotape it, It's not fair to the user, it's not fair to everybody involved.
Thank you, Jen. Anything? Thank you. Good job. Thank you. Public Works. But you're happy not to talk about the park anymore.
Well, he's got.
Now he's got.
Let's see what he's gonna say. Thank you and good evening. No, I'm not gonna talk about the park. I'll leave that alone. But I'll give you a quick update on the Woods of Antioch. It is pretty much complete. They've got minor restoration to make to the parkway that got damaged during the construction, but all the cul-de-sacs that were planned to be reconstructed are full final surface paved. So glad that project went smoothly and quickly. They're ahead of schedule. So
They're beautiful.
yeah, everything turned out real good, and the work won't stop there. Between HR Green and myself, we're going to continue to work over the next few months to develop a bid package and a plan set for 2025 to put that out as early as possible. So we're not dealing with weather and the end of the year for pavement.
Plus, we hope to have a much larger project than. The road program, they started a week early. They started yesterday, but they had a breakdown of the mill machine. So today was really their full day. They started in Landmark subdivision, completed that, moved over to First and Hillendale. It looks like they completed that this evening right before dark. So all the milling is complete there, and they'll be moving over to Oakwood Knolls tomorrow. I'm not sure how long Oakwood Knolls will take them, but maybe they'll be wrapped up by Friday, I would say. And then I'll get an updated schedule as to what their next steps are. They do have some full depth patches that will be identified once all the milling is done. They have a few culverts that we incorporated into the project this year for some driveways within all the knolls. And we have basically sewer repairs on Hillendale that we recently found during some televising. We had some concerns because the road showed a settlement spot, so we did some televising and found out that where there were settled areas, there was no problems with pipes, but a couple other areas there was some heavy cracking in the clay pipe that's there. So in conjunction with the road program, we hired a contractor. We put out a request for 3 bids or 3 estimates. We're going with the lowest bid. It's a local contractor, and he's going to start over repairs next week, Tuesday. Hopefully weather permitting, but it looks like the second goal is projected to take 2 days to do those 2 repairs. The sewer is 10 feet deep, so it's a relatively deep repair. That's one of the reasons that we did not do it in-house, plus some of our activities that we have going on right now and the time restraint, not delaying any of the road program or the road program contract. And then some in-house items, just crews have been working on sidewalk removal and replacement. I hope to continue that as weather permits and staffing for the next several weeks. And then we are also going to begin stump grinding a lot of the parkway trees that we removed over basically this entire spring and summer. Some are related to the storms that we had, and then generally just dead trees that died over the winter or over the summer. So we have a large amount, and we will be hopefully tackling all those and getting those ready for school before winter. Is there any questions?
I have one. Do you know when they're gonna start the Main Street sidewalks? Or Michael maybe knows that.
So we actually have another meeting, Zoom meeting with the Blacktop Company tomorrow to finalize. We're pushing for early in the week, not next week, the following week, because businesses are closed. Numerous businesses are closed early in the week versus later in the week. And Kimberly will be coordinating that with the businesses. So we're trying to minimize any type of impact on the small businesses along Main Street. But hopefully within the next couple weeks.
And then just for the boards and Denny's information, I don't know if you're on this call tomorrow, but to give the board props and also at the IML, we were at some hearings with Dan Showman, who was our liaison to Springfield. And one of the most important ones we were in was regarding the lead pipe replacement. We have a call with the state tomorrow talking about funds to help us start that project. So we can get that money before, hopefully get some of that money from the state before it runs out, but that's happening tomorrow.
All right. I do have a request for executive session to talk about litigation and property acquisition, but no further business to take place after executive session. So I'd entertain a motion and a second for that. So moved. Trustee Bluthart, second trustee Pierce. All in favor? Anyone opposed? All right, the meeting is adjourned at 8:30-ish, and we're in executive session.
No.